What's happening now? When we started designing websites, we always invented the wheel over and over again. For a long time, nobody had figured out information architecture, so we all just made stuff up. We made up, we said, well, this one's going to have 17 buttons, and we'll name them after the zodiac. I mean, it was, a wild and woolly thing, and then Peter Morville and Louis Rosenfeld wrote Information Architecture for the World Wide Web, and people started figuring it out. Jared Spool and Jacob Nielsen started talking about usability, and people started figuring that out, and Steve Krug wrote about it very beautifully, and people started going, oh, it's common sense applied to design. Oh, okay, I get it. What's happened? And so that was sort of the first phase of the web. That was, if you can, all these phases and everything, it's all kind of artificial, but the first phase of the web was going from pirates doing underground stuff, making it up, nobody really having any idea how any of it worked, and that was so much fun. And then figuring out how usability, information architecture, design on the web, what are standard screen sizes, all that stuff. So we went through that phase. What we're going through now, with open source and with open source libraries especially, is that I'll talk about my least favorite thing first. So CSS is the design language of the web. And it's not as easy to use as it ought to be, and it can be confusing, especially if you're new to it. So certain people have created CSS libraries, which they give away, where they say, well, if you want a 3-column layout, then do this. It's not a tutorial telling you how to make a 3-column layout. That's sort of the first phase. I wrote some of those, and lots of people wrote those. This is a second phase where instead of writing a tutorial, people are basically giving you a bunch of code and saying, here's how this code works. If you need to do a 4-column layout, or here's the grid. Here's a 10-part grid that's 960 pixels wide. It'll fit very nicely at 1024 by 768. And if you want it, if you want these proportions, then use this little snippet of code. And if you want these proportions, use this little snippet. That's useful. It's my least favorite because there's no one-size-fits-all for design. And I think while that can help you if you don't know CSS, make a CSS layout, ultimately it doesn't really educate everyone, and it doesn't allow designers to think outside the box. It's basically we're making a box. But mostly, these days, it's not. Mostly, you can use Expression Engine or Drupal, or basically tools that are kind of like WordPress and, and Blogger, kind of like blogging tools, but on steroids. You can use those things, and there's a whole community of people out there. We have a site right now that is currently running on a custom, our own content site, our magazine, is running on a beautifully created custom content management system. It was written in Ruby on Rails by Dan Benjamin. It's awesome. And he's a brilliant developer, and he created it very quickly, but he's also very busy. And when we need to modify something, we can't always get his attention. And he's the only person in the world who knows how to come in and modify it. So we're transitioning and taking it to Expression Engine. And that's not a no-brainer process. That requires real developer power. But once you've done that, it's sort of like transitioning to web standards. If you move from old-fashioned markup to web standards, there's sort of pain the first time you do that because you've got all this crap and you don't know what to do with it. And it's like, how do I scrape the content out of all this crap that was used to surround it? But once you've done it, you'll never have to do it again. Once you've done it, your markup can stay the same forever, even though your layout may change radically. Well, it's the same with these tools. Once you move from moving from static to $1 million CMS, the pain was all that learning and all that money and licensing agreements and miserable stuff. Now we have really powerful, comparatively easy to understand open source content management systems, or proprietary with like Expression Engine is proprietary but has a very simple licensing agreement. Basically, you pay like $100 a year and that's it. We're really in a time now where a lot of stuff's been invented. We know how a lot of stuff works. We know what community means on the web. We know what magazine publishing is on the web. We're still trying to figure out art direction on the web, but we figured a lot of stuff out, and people who in the past might have just kept their expertise to themselves are now sharing it very generously in these little frameworks and open source applications, And other people are adding, writing, Mark Hewitt, who works for HappyCode, created extensions for Expression Engine. Like, oh, the client wants to do this, Expression Engine doesn't do it out of the box. Here's this thing, I've invented it, I'll give it to the community to use. So that's where we are with that.